So I just finished reading Mistborn, The Final Empire, which is the first in the Mistborn trilogy, and it's written by Brendan Sanderson. It's a fantasy epic. It's set in a world, sort of an alternate universe that's like an empire that's scorched earth. The sun is covered by ashy clouds. It rains ash. All the plants are brown, kind of a post-apocalyptic, and the entire empire is ruled by the Lord Ruler, who is this absolute tyrant. And the world is separated between the absolute elites, the rich, and then a massive amount of this population called the Ska, which are essentially all slaves, and they aren't even seen as human, and they're treated horribly. And the story follows a young girl named Vin, who is she follows sort of like a thieving crew. She's Ska. She's just like a slave to this world. And she discovers through sort of this master named Kelsier that she is what is called an allomancer. She has the ability to have sort of like superpowers based on burning metal. They consume different alloys, and that gives them certain superpowers. And with that, he teaches her how to use allomancy, and they build a crew that is going to destroy the Lord Ruler. This book is crazy good. The world building and the lore behind all of these characters is really, really awesome. The magic is very well thought out. There is a tremendous amount of detail. There's a little too much explaining sometimes, but it all sort of pays off later in the book to help you understand all of these mechanics that fold in on themselves and allow sort of like twists and turns throughout the book. The main character, Vin, tiny bit annoying because she is, think of it like a Harry Potter kind of, it's the classic sort of hero's journey where she's discovering this new world and she's forced into, these situations where she has to be sort of secret and get information, kind of like a spy, and she ends up falling in love with someone that she's not supposed to be falling in love with, and it is ruining the plan that all of these people are putting their life in jeopardy to have this plan, and they're like, please do not fall in love with this guy. For the love of God, do not fall in love with him. It is dangerous. It's going to ruin everything. And she's like, but I really love him. And they're like, no, he's a horrible person. He will kill you. And she's like, no, but he's really kind of sweet. And even the guy's like, no, I'm kind of a terrible person. So like, don't fall in love with me. And she's like, but I'll change you and you're kind of different. And then after the whole book, everything leads up and they're like, and her love of this guy is like ruining everything for them. And then finally, when there's a situation where they're like, okay, you can fall in love with him, she's like, I don't think we're destined to be together. And it's just like, oh my God, you're so insufferable. So, but despite all that, the book is really cool. The world is super interesting. There are these guards that sort of defend the Lord Ruler. They're these like elite crew of creatures that the Lord Ruler has created with his own magic. The Lord Ruler is supposed to be like a god, and he has this like incredible power. But they're called the Steel Inquisitors, and it's so sick because they have like these iron spikes through their head, and so they like see with the magic of these iron spikes, and they have like this infinite power, and it's just so sick. There's a lot of fight scenes that I just felt myself like disinterested. I'm not really a novel reader, so maybe it's just, I don't know, but it's like a lot of description, and sometimes I'm like idly just sort of listening, and I'm like, okay, but who wins? Like, just get to the part, where somebody wins, because they're describing all of this, like, and then they flipped up, they grabbed this to their left, and there's so much descriptor that I'm just sort of like tuning out a little bit. So, I don't know. But again, it feels very much Lord of the Rings-esque, where there's just so much to know about the people and the world. And Brandon Sanderson, the author, is obviously just an absolute writing phenom, because he has like another series called The Stormlight Archive, I think it is. And there's like 7 or 8 books, and each one is like 2,000 pages long. And I haven't read those obviously, but if it's anything like these books, I'm just thinking like the amount of thinking and thought process behind the mechanics of this magic in this world and the details that he goes into. I'm like, this guy must just have crazy charts to keep track of all this. There are entire Wikipedia, like wiki websites and fandoms where people are just like going in through the lore and trying to explain it. And I see people all the time just looking up little things about Mistborn where they're like, yeah, I'm trying to better understand book 2 of this because I don't understand how the magic mechanic, and people are like, oh, well, if you go to this page and then there's a further on we learn this, and it's just like, oh my gosh, what a brain to have that. And he has all these series where he's just an absolute nerd writer, but the world he created is really cool. This was like a bestseller back in the day. I think it came out in 2006 or something. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next book. The next one is checked out right now, and it's been checked out since well before I even checked out this one, so I know the book's overdue, which is annoying. It's like, dude, just return your book to the library. And it's worth saying, I think, if you don't already know it, I've been listening to these on audiobooks because I'm not really a reader. But yeah, I think it's super good. If you're into this kind of a thing, definitely check it out. I am very new to the epic fantasy genre, and I was not somebody who was particularly gripped by fantasy typically, and so I did some research of like what's the best way to dive in without feeling overwhelmed, and this book just kept coming up, and so I decided to dive in. And I have to say, I mean, from my experience, it has made me much more open to the genre, just because this one is not for the lack of a better word, it's not like too nerdy, you know what I mean? It still is grounded in a sense of reality. It's not a whole lot of like old English or anything. It's kind of all normal in that way. So great book. If it means anything, it's a 7 out of 10. I don't have much of a benchmark because I don't really read fiction that often. So I'll definitely be continuing the series, and I'll let you know what I think. If you're a fan of Mistborn, please let me know what you think of it. What's another book to read after I finish these ones? Because I would like to continue on Brendan Sanderson, but I also see a heavy road of long books ahead of me. So if there's maybe another detour that I can take to alleviate some of that dauntingness, I'd love to know. Thanks.